Hello everybody. I'm going to talk about legislation, not only for cargo bikes as part of a bigger family of vehicles which we call light electric vehicles. And our organization, which is a trade association for companies active in light electric vehicles, is dealing with all these vehicles. Why? Because we believe that the future of transport, sustainable transport, is not only electric, but it's also light. So we really believe that we need to move from the very heavy vehicles that we have today to much lighter vehicles. And just as an introduction, in 2022, we had research carried out by a German Transport Research Institute to see what the emission-saving potential of light electric vehicles are. And we were astonished ourselves when we saw the results, because they calculated that it wasn't specifically about cargo, it was about all transport. They found that 76% of all car trips could just as well have been done with light electric vehicles. And if that would be the case, it would result in 44% less CO2 equivalent emissions. So there is a huge potential. We would like to have a study also on the economic value of the light electric vehicle sector, the potential to create jobs, to create economic value. So that's our next ambition, but we were already very happy with our Left for Climate report. If you go on our website, you will find the report there. So when I talk about light electric vehicles, this is the whole range that we are working for, and it's linked to the current legislation, technical legislation. So you have Regulation 168/2013, which has 7 categories of vehicles, from L1EA, which are powered cycles, to L7, who are heavy quadrimobiles. And it's actually never meant to be this way, but by coincidence, light electric vehicles are in that legislation. And as a result, we're stuck with legislation which has never been written specifically for light electric vehicles, but where they have made some adjustments, some dots and commas to make it fit to light electric vehicles, but it's not always working very well, as I will explain in a minute. So there is L1 to L7, and as a result, it includes electric bicycles, cargo cycles as well, which have more than 250 watt, 25 kilometers an hour. Speed pedelecs are in 168/2013. Electric mopeds and scooters, motorcycles, and an electric 3 and 4 wheels, for instance, microcars, L7 or L6 are there too. And if you look at the regulation, you will find Article 2.2, which lists all the vehicles which are excluded. Again, this was not a very well considered decision by the European Union. It was just by coincidence. They came across some vehicles at the time that they didn't know what to do with, so they excluded them from the legislation. We're talking about electric cycles, bicycles, cycles, whether they have 2, 3, or 4 wheels, with a maximum continuous rated power of 250 watts and assistance up to 25 kilometers. Self-balancing vehicles, vehicles without a seating position, which covers e-scooters, but put a seat on the e-scooter and it becomes a moped, and so on. So here again, the list, if they come under Regulation 168/2013, it means they have to go through a very complex type approval. So you have to develop a type and then go through testing in an accredited test house to see if you comply with all the rules. If they are excluded from Regulation 168/2013, as I said, which is the case for electric cycles, also cargo bikes, up to 250 watt maximum continuous rated power and 25 kilometers an hour, they come under the Machinery Directive. There's other legislation applicable as well. So they're either under the moped motorcycle legislation or under the machinery legislation. And this is not very comfortable. So they're being squeezed into pre-existing vehicle categories, and the rules, the technical rules, have never really been devised for these vehicles. And as a result, they cannot be identified in the regulatory landscape. You see there are two pictures, and what are they? Are they electric bikes? Are they speed pedelecs? They can either be e-packs, 25 250 watt excluded, which gets the same conditions for use as conventional bicycles. They could also be L1EA powered cycles. Most member states don't even know that there is such a thing as L1EA, and they don't even have terms of use for these vehicles. There are none of these vehicles on the road, by the way, because type approval is too difficult. Or it could be a speed pedelec, which then comes under L1EB. And it's the same with the microcars. When you see these microcars, what are they? Are they L6? Light quadrimobiles? Are they heavy quadrimobiles? They could even be M1, which has no weight limitation, which is the car category. So we state, we think that the current regulatory framework forces light electric vehicles in a corset which is not suitable for them, which results in major legal obstructions. Certain types of vehicles can just not come on the market. And it also hinders the functioning of the single market, because member states, we see it now with e-scooters, member states are not really aware of the existing legislation, and they start to develop their own technical rules. For cargo bikes, it's even worse in the Netherlands, because the Netherlands, after the accident with the stint, has decided to develop what is called the LEF framework. And the LEF framework has specific technical rules for the Netherlands for cargo bikes. Yes, which in our opinion is to the detriment of the single market. The idea was to have one set of rules for 27 member states, so this is going against that objective. Electric cargo bikes, or we call them carrier cycles, because that's the name that they have in the standards. If they have pedal assistance only and they're limited to 250 watts, then they, as explained, are not under type approval. They come under the machinery directive. The problem is that you have to pedal all the time, because the law says if you stop pedaling, the motor should stop. And we question this, whether this is a good way of organizing technical legislation. You can say, well, it's good to cycle, but some people don't have the possibility to pedal all the way. So why are they punished and do not get vehicles which are suitable for them? So we believe it's a severe obstruction to the development of sustainable transport in general, but also sustainable logistics. So it's only for the fit that cargo bikes, heavy cargo bikes, especially in hilly areas, are available. Here too, I mean, there's some vehicles which are being developed, and the idea would be some of them are being, for instance, the pod bike, you probably all know the pod bike, was developed as a 25 250 watt. But why does it have to be limited like that? But it's just happening because otherwise legislation is way too complex. So category type approval is almost insurmountable. Because it's inadequate, it's too complex, it's really expensive, it does not allow for innovation. And another issue is that there's very few technical services available, like there's none in Belgium. We have a few speed pedelec manufacturers in Belgium, and they have to go to Germany or to Spain to get their types approved. At the same time, we also believe that the machinery directive is not suitable. This is for machines. These are not machines, they are vehicles. And we have inadequate and irrelevant requirements in the machinery directive. For instance, we have huge debates about vibration requirements in standards. Now, there are vibration requirements in the machinery directive because some people are working with drills 8 hours a day. And okay, you have to protect them from those vibrations, but in the case of cargo bikes or other cycles, they come from the road surface. There's not much you can do about it. And you see that certain member states do not really acknowledge this legislative framework as harmonized legislation for light electric vehicles. I already quoted the example of the Netherlands, who want to introduce this LEV framework with their own technical rules. And the result is also that you have national terms of use traffic codes, where the member states are still allowed to decide, which are also not very helpful to get these vehicles on the road. For instance, if you do not allow cargo bikes on cycle paths, they have to go on the road, and then they have to mix with vehicles which are much faster and much bigger than what they are. It's really not very, very pleasant. We have worked in an expert group. An expert group is a group set up by the European Commission, and which includes the Commission, which includes member states, and which includes stakeholders. And there is an expert group on urban mobility, which had to formulate recommendations for the European Commission about what we need to do to improve sustainable urban mobility. And there we have managed to convince the group to include a recommendation that we don't want a machinery directive anymore, we don't want Regulation 168/2013 anymore, we want our own legislation, because the legislation in existence also is not developed in consultation with the light electric vehicle business. It's developed in consultation with the motorcycle business or with the machinery business, and they don't know anything about light electric vehicles. So why are we not entitled to our own legislation? So that is there now, this recommendation. So we believe that if we have a horizontal regulation with safety requirements for all light electric vehicles, excluded from 168/2013 and the machinery directive regulation, this would have to cover all light electric vehicles, including cargo bikes. One of the things that we really don't want anymore is power limits. And sometimes other parties accuse us of wanting very powerful, very fast vehicles. That's not true. We just believe that power limits are not relevant for the safety of the vehicle. So we also think that it should be possible to bring vehicles on the market which are not only with pedal assistance. So we would like all these vehicles under the LEV regulation, where we have essential safety requirements for all these vehicles, like in the machinery directive, has essential safety requirements for all different types of vehicles. And then we can develop specific requirements for specific groups of vehicles, like the cargo bikes. We already have the cargo bike standards, the 17860 series, with 7 standards for different types of cargo bikes. We could then bring these standards under the LEV legislation, and it would be done in close consultation with the LEV sector. That would give us a uniform and consistent framework, and it would give us the term light electric vehicles, because today, especially the European Commission, they don't really know what they're talking about, and they talk about micromobility, personal mobility devices, light means of transport is another term. So we want one term with one definition, so that we all know what we're talking about. And as a result, if they make new legislation and it can refer to light electric vehicles, then the legislation will become much better interconnected. Also, we want a regulation to ensure technology neutrality. It has to be based on kinetic energy and safe acceleration. As I said, we don't want any power limits anymore. It is totally incredible that we now have vehicles with exactly the same kinetic energy, which are subject to completely different technical legislative frameworks. So we don't want any arbitrary classifications, no power limit, and no inconsistent application of the above principles. And we also want discrepancies in the current framework for light electric vehicles to be removed. And we also think if we can have this consultation between the Commission, stakeholders and member states in a light electric vehicle expert group, that this will bring together the member states, and there they can exchange experience about terms of use, which would be beneficial in our opinion to encourage member states to apply terms of use which are positive for these vehicles. Yes, I have already mentioned about irrelevant and adequate requirements. It would also provide companies with greater legal certainty. And for the moment, we believe that the legislation is working against innovation. We believe that with a LEF regulation, there would be innovation, there would be room for innovation and for growth. Yeah, we want the left sector to actually do the job of developing the legislation. We have already done many risk assessments for the purpose of standards. So I think the left sector knows what the risks are that need to be covered by this left legislation. So let us do the risk assessments. Let us also determine the compliance methods, because nobody has asked any questions so far to the left sector. Do you want self-certification? Do you want a notified body to be involved, or do you want type approval? And I think it's up to the left sector themselves to decide what is the best solution to have safe vehicles. So we could bring the standards that we have now under the regulation and then have conversations or discussions in the sector how we are going to go about compliance. As I said, we want an expert group with the member states, with left stakeholders, so that we can have a uniform implementation of European legislation, and we can have discussions about no additional restrictive national rules. And as I said, the consultation between the member states may also be inspirational to have good terms of use throughout the European Union. We believe this will result in huge economic opportunities, because it will become possible to put new types of light electric vehicles on the market. It will unlock economic potential of the left sector. It will also show that the left sector can play a pivotal role in the modal shift, and it will pave the way for sustainable growth, for development, investment, innovation, and so on. And also, in Europe, we have 87 million people who have some sort of disability. We believe that many millions of them have a disability which do not allow them to pedal all the time. So if we have vehicles that can be adapted to that, we will attract many millions of people to light electric vehicles, which is not the case today. So the removal of power limits and the removal of the obligation to pedal will give also access to all transport workers who would like to become active in the sector, irrespective of their muscular power. So this is just an overview, a schematic overview. As I said, kinetic energy, which is speed and weight. So we suggest 3 categories. And we would rather have a category of 30 and 50, because that's parallel with the speed limits that we have on the road, and not the 25, 45, which comes from mopeds, motorcycles. And then it's up to, so 30, 50 and above, and then it's up to the left sector to decide what the weight categories should be and what the associated compliance methods should be with these categories. So this is our idea about the future of LEF legislation, including cargo bikes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annick. Very interesting presentation. Please stay a little bit longer because we have time for questions in the audience. Is there someone with a burning question? Please raise your hand. You're immediately putting your hand up. I like to see that. I'll come your way. What's your name, what's your background, and what's your question?
My name is Maarten. My background is in last mile building materials delivery. And I have a question about the gross vehicle weight. So you can see a lot of cargo bikes becoming bigger, having the possibility to carry more weight, right? So there's examples here on the floor, I guess, that weigh around like 600 or 650 total, including the payload. And I wonder if that's going to be a consideration in the proposed regulations, apart from just the maximum speed and the maximum kilowatt power, basically. Because if you go like 25 an hour with 650 kilos total, then it's still a huge accident if you bump into another road user.
Good question, thank you.
Yeah, I can speak. Sorry. I was waiting for the microphone. Sorry. For the moment, there are the standards for cargo bikes which are excluded from the type approval, so up to 25 kilometers an hour. There's a standard for heavy-duty cargo bikes, which has now a limit of 650 kilograms. So my response to that is let it up to the sector to decide whether there should be weight limits. The weight limits in the part 4 of the standards has been decided by the sector. So I'm sure that they're responsible people, and if they decide that we can have a weight limit up to 650, it's because they believe that it can be done in a safe way. It's not because the law says that if you have pedal assistance up to 25 kilometers an hour, you're excluded from type approval. You have to make sure that you can effectively do your 25 kilometers an hour. This is just a speed limit which has been put in place for all different types of light electric vehicles. I have an electric bike on 2 wheels, 25 kilometers an hour. I'm not very happy with it. I would rather have it do it 30 kilometers an hour. But as I said, I'm convinced that the people in the sector are responsible people and that they are the best placed to decide what the limit should be. Only there is no consultation today about the limits.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Are you worried for like the kilograms, or do you see opportunities for it?
No, I'm not very worried. I'm just... It's just something that popped up, especially because it has been quite a pain for me as a logistics company who mainly uses vans currently to find a way like regulation for max vehicle weight, right? Especially if you drive electric vans. And then I was just wondering, does this also apply to cargo bikes? But apparently it does. Yeah, and then maybe also a bit in the back of my head, maybe a little bit of worry, you know, because some cargo bikes are just, the driver is very exposed, right? And we all know that pedestrians and cyclists are more vulnerable in traffic. And if we don't change something in road use by, you know, well, car drivers or van drivers like myself, transport companies, then the vulnerability remains. And then if you have if you're like a 650 gross vehicle weight, then I mean the impact is going to be huge.
But
I think the point is clear. Can you react on that?
Yeah, you must keep in mind that technical legislation is not meant to regulate the use of the vehicles. It's the same with cars. There is no the weight of the cars is going up and up and up and up and up, and they can do 200 kilometers an hour. But it is the traffic code that regulates the use of the vehicle. We all take it for granted that these huge SUVs, when you say in city centers 30 kilometers an hour, that they will do 30 kilometers an hour. And you need to keep that in mind for something like cargo bikes as well. Technical legislation, the technical rules that they have to comply with are meant to make sure that the vehicle itself is safe. But next to that, there are terms of use, the traffic code, like how fast can you use your cargo bike, can you go on the cycle path or not? And that is decided by the member states. And that is also a very important instrument in ensuring that you organize traffic in a safe way. And this is where I'm saying, because there's a lot of discussions about, should we allow cargo bikes on a cycle path or not? And then, because there's conflicts with cyclists and with e-scooter users and so on. But if there's conflict, in my opinion, that means that the cycle path is not big enough anymore to have all these vehicles living in peace together. So that means that not that you have to try and cut down the cargo bikes because they have a purpose transporting all this, but you have to provide more space for safe use and better rules for safe use of these vehicles. And that's an exercise that needs to be done by the member states. Whereas the member states, we see in many cases, not so much in city centers, because they're pushing out the cars, they're pushing out the vans, and they create automatically space for cargo bikes and so on. But often member states still do not think about really reorganizing and rearranging the road use according to the new vehicles that are coming on the market today.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. We still have time for one burning question. Keep it short for the time, please. Thanks.
Thank you. I am Philippe from the Belgian Cycle Logistics Federation. Sorry, I did not get maybe at the beginning, but what will stay as an e-pack with this new LEV?
We don't care what is an e-bike.
It will not exist anymore.
No, because technical legislation is not meant to figure out what is a bike. That doesn't matter in technical legislation. Technical legislation is to make sure that you have technical rules in place to ensure a safe vehicle on the road. And I know that there's this discussion going on, we have to make sure that bicycles are kept bicycles. But there's other ways of doing that. You don't use technical legislation if you want to encourage active travel. If you want to encourage that, you use incentives. For instance, in Belgium, there's 37 € per kilometer for people who use a bike, an e-bike, or a speed pedelec to go to work. That's a perfect incentive to encourage active travel. But you cannot, we find it totally unacceptable that technical legislation is used to decide what can come on the road and what cannot come on the road just for the benefit of active travel.
Thank you, Annick. We're going to round this round up. Thank you so much for your time and for your inspiration. Can I get a big applause for Annick? Thank you.
Thank you.